Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, Pramila Jayapal admits she betrayed the United States of America to help a communist dictatorship in Cuba. But before we get to any of that, my friends, time for your daily dose of adrenaline.
You want me to stick this into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
Would you rather live in Seattle, Washington under Katie Wilson? Would you rather live in New York City under Zoran Mamdani? Both are pursuing the same economic suicide plans for their cities in very different ways. Though Zoran Mamdani always comes across as charming or swarmy, Katie Wilson always comes across as incompetent. The results are exactly the same coast to coast. Let's start with what happened here in Seattle, Washington. Katie Wilson gets elected, and nobody actually expected her to get elected. Can we realize why she got elected? Bruce Harrell, terrible mayor. But he was seen as slightly less insane than Lorena Gonzalez, who was running against him. So I didn't see a difference between the two of them because I thought he was a boob. But he got elected. And I said, you're going to have 4 years of basically meh. And that's what you got. So Katie Wilson says she's running, but in the meantime, crime hasn't really been fixed. Homelessness hasn't really been fixed. Nothing's really better around here. They're just down from their record highs because you basically have nowhere else to go from your record highs but down. And COVID's over, and other insanities kind of wrapping up. There's no more autonomous zone. So things are a little bit better, but it's just a status quo. Keep the status quo. So what happened is you have Katie Wilson come along. This crazy communist socialist who was the general secretary of the Transit Riders Union, a radical activist group that picked every far-left cause they could possibly think of. And you have the two of them going head-to-head with each other. Nobody's excited to vote for Bruce Harrell. They just want to vote against Katie Wilson. Katie Wilson's people see an opportunity, and they vote for her. And because so few people actually showed up to the election, because so many people like me said, there's no difference between the two of them. Let's just see what happens. Let's let it all burn down. Katie Wilson wins. The day she wins the election, don't forget, she won by like 1,000 votes. That was it. The day she wins the election, she declares victory, gives a speech quoting things from communist paraphernalia, communist doctrine like bread and roses. And then what does she do? As her first act as mayor-elect, she goes and joins Starbucks baristas who are protesting outside their stores, which haven't been open in a month because of this strike, to tell everybody to boycott Starbucks. Well, Starbucks don't like this very much. Then it gets worse. These lunatic activists go to Starbucks corporate headquarters, wrapped in keffiyehs, armed with posters and signs. They start their own little ventifada, which has nothing whatsoever to do with what's going on in the Middle East. The nearest Starbucks to Israel is in Amman, Jordan. There's not even a single Starbucks in Israel. They decide that they are going to protest Starbucks. Pramila Jayapal comes to join them. And Starbucks says, oh, okay, fine. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to close the 5 stores that are some of the most highest performing stores in the area. Because you guys suck. Because if you guys are going to boycott all the time, it's not worth having these stores open if they're closed because we're just paying the rent for them. So forget it. We're done. They closed the stores in high-performing areas like University of Washington and near the Space Needle. Gone. Erased from existence. As if that's not bad enough, Democrats here in the Washington State Legislature say, you know what, Starbucks, everybody else, we're going to pass this high income tax, which is really going to become an income tax on everybody. And the day they pass it, Howard Schultz says, I'm out of here, founder of Starbucks, bye-bye. He says, like, bye, just like Katie Wilson. And he says, I'm going to Miami. Starbucks announces they're moving jobs, having layoffs. You can either move to Nashville or you can get laid off. And the rest is history. So now we're losing an icon like Starbucks. What's fascinating is almost the exact same thing is happening in New York. Now, as I said earlier, Zoran Mamdani is much more charming or swarmy, depending on which way it is, always with that idiot smile on his face, even though he's staring. You can tell by the eyes. You can tell by the eyes what he's really thinking. Katie Wilson, the engine's running, but nobody's behind the wheel. You can tell from those empty eyes and her confused look all the time, she has no idea what's going on. So she has a bunch of public gaffes, which we have covered extensively, culminating in saying, like, bye to all the wealthy, all the companies, all the businesses that want to leave Seattle are leaving Seattle right now. Then she has a disastrous interview with Como's Chris Daniels, where she leaves because he's not on topic, doesn't like the question, not prepared for it. Her staff pulls her away. Yesterday, I went to see who the staff member actually was. There's a guy in a vest, and I said, that's odd. Mayor staff don't usually wear equipment vests. What is he, a cameraman or something? And it turns out he works for Seattle Public Utilities. And I thought to myself, why is a guy from Seattle Public Utilities pulling away the mayor? The mayor should say, utility man, go plunge a toilet or go clean out a pipe or go fix a road or whatever it is. I'm not listening to you. Or very politely say, thank you, but I'm going to answer this reporter's question. Instead, she listens to the guy in the utility vest. That's odd. And he then is the one talking to Como News, which means clearly a directive has gone out, either via email or verbally, that, guys, we have to handle the mayor. We have to handle the mayor. Or somebody told him before the event, you got to handle the mayor. You got to get her out of there. And when we tell you to get her out of there, you get her out of there because we're running the show, not her. That's a scary place to be. As I asked yesterday, who's actually running the show in the mayor's office? So yesterday, there's this event for Sound Transit. We know that Sound Transit is way, way, way over budget, way, way, way behind schedule, so much so that they may not be able to do the West Seattle branch and they may not be able to do the Ballard branch, but they're probably going to try and tax all of us in order to do these things that nobody's going to take, because by then, all the companies and all people will have moved. So what happens? Katie Wilson is so mad and so embarrassed, or at least her staff is, over what happened with Chris Daniels from Como News, that now she is dodging Como News, one of the biggest news outlets in the Seattle metro area.
It was after this meeting we tried asking Mayor Wilson about transparency in her office, and she declined after a spokesperson told us hours earlier she should have time after the forum. This follows days of national headlines questioning city leadership after multiple appearances. Most recently, when a staffer cut off an interview between Como reporter Chris Daniels and the mayor about public safety.
Does that change your perspective at all?
And while the mayor dodged our most recent interview attempt, when talking about public transit, she emphasized she'll support light rail expansion for all regions, including Everett and Tacoma. She said that could include advocating to state lawmakers in the next legislative session.
We need a commitment to get to final design like ASAP so that we can begin to find those cost savings and understand what it's really going to cost.
Officials say there will be more clarity about project plans at a committee meeting on Thursday. I'm told if that committee signs off on a proposal or a plan, construction could start in the next few months. For now, reporting in Seattle, Jackie Kent, Como News.
You don't have the costs. You don't have a final design plan. But you've already spent billions of dollars on those lines. Would somebody like to explain to me where the money is going and why we should spend any money on this whatsoever, when literally you just had the mayor of Seattle admitting there's no final design and they don't know how much it costs, but they want to go forward with it anyway? Are you out of your mind? This is how you have a $40 billion cost overrun, because you don't know how much it'll cost and you haven't finished designing the thing yet. So basically, they said it's going to cost X billions of dollars when they pass this thing, but had no idea how much it was actually going to cost and had no idea what the design was actually going to be. I wonder if there's going to be anybody left to take the train. But then you catch that part that Como says they were supposed to be able to interview the mayor and she got out of there. And this is something we're hearing from all media outlets in town, that they're hiding Katie Wilson, that she's running away from the press. Now she's running away from Como News because the media asks normal questions and she can't answer them. She chased away Starbucks. More businesses are looking at leaving. The tech sector's basically on the way out. She destroyed it. Do you think it's intentional? Do you think it's that they want all the wealth gone? Because let me fill everybody in on something on the socialist side of the aisle for a second here. You need that tax base to fund the ridiculous things you spend money on. If you don't have a tax base, you can't fund anything. And you're chasing away your tax base. But maybe that's the plan. Maybe it's just get everybody working for the city, everybody working for King County, everybody working for the state, then they're all reliant on the city, county, and state. Maybe. Maybe that's what it is. They want everybody reliant on the government. That's right, bread and roses. I think they said something about that. In New York, it's almost identical what these policies are causing. And even though Mamdani's way more charming, evil, but charming, than Katie Wilson is, the same thing is happening. You might remember a couple weeks ago, on April 15th, on tax day, Zoran Mamdani made this video.
When I ran for mayor, I said I was going to tax the rich. Well, today, we're taxing the rich. I'm thrilled to announce we've secured a pied-à-terre tax, the first in New York's history. This is an annual fee on luxury properties worth more than $5 million, whose owners do not live full-time in the city. Like for this penthouse, which hedge fund CEO Ken Griffin bought for $238 million. This pied-à-terre tax is specifically designed for the richest of the rich, those who store their wealth in New York City real estate, but who don't actually live here. But even so, they're able to reap the huge financial rewards of owning property in, dare I say, the greatest city in the world. And most of the time, these units are sitting empty, since again, they don't actually live here. This is a fundamentally unfair system that hurts working New Yorkers. Now, it's coming to an end. This tax will raise at least $500 million directly for the city. It'll help fund things like free childcare, cleaner streets, and safer neighborhoods. As mayor, I believe everyone has a role to play in contributing to our city, and some a little bit more than others. Happy Tax Day, New York.
I've never seen somebody so giddy to tax people. And Zoran Mamdani calling out Ken Griffin because he's wealthy, because he's a billionaire. You came from money, dude. Your father is a well-paid Columbia professor. Your mother is a Hollywood director. You grew up with a silver spoon in your mouth. You were highly educated. You went to Bowdoin. I mean, you went to some of these amazing schools. You grew up in a mansion. You grew up in a mansion with very rich parents. And then you're complaining about somebody else's wealth? Well, Ken Griffin has paid billions of dollars in taxes, not just corporate, but personally, spent a lot of money and had billions of dollars in projects in New York. So the question was, how is Ken Griffin going to respond to this? He was at a business conference just yesterday, and here's what he said.
So where does that leave us at 350 Park?
That leaves us with the fact that we went to Miami and revised our building plan to make it a bigger office building.
You're bailing?
So what do we do at 350 is still a point of discussion internally. But what is no longer a point of discussion is that Miami is now, you know, when we moved from Chicago, there was a debate between New York and Miami. It's unquestionably true that we made the right choice. I'll leave it at that. It's unquestionably true that we made the right choice. And now what the mayor of New York has made clear to my partners, and principally my New York partners, is that we need to double down on our bet in Miami, because we want to be in a state that embraces business, that embraces education, that embraces personal freedom and liberty, and that embraces people having an opportunity to live the American dream.
Good job, Mamdani. You just chased out $6 billion worth of investment at that 350 address. Well done. They're reevaluating their position, which means they're debating whether or not it's worth it, whether or not they need all those construction jobs, whether or not they should be spending all the money on that project, or whether that money should be going instead into Miami. And you know what? This is because Zoran Mamdani has made it very clear. Rich people are evil, even though he's one of them. He wants them all gone, no matter how many jobs they provide. So I bet you the surrounding businesses there in Manhattan would have been very, very happy to have a company there, another big office building there, another big project there. But unfortunately now, Ken Griffin looks like he's doubling down on Miami, Just like when we went down to the Starbucks corporate HQ a couple weeks ago, we saw how many businesses were closed. We saw how many people weren't down there anymore. We saw how empty those Starbucks shuttles were. We saw how empty the Starbucks parking lot is. So that means all the little restaurants around there aren't doing well because the people they counted on for lunch break from Starbucks aren't coming anymore. Notice how many businesses have closed in Lake Union because Amazon got out of here and Amazon went to Bellevue. So now those small mom and pop businesses that the left loves to talk about all the time, they're now all in trouble or gone because of this. This got so bad that the media is now asking Mamdani about the disaster he has caused.
Ken Griffin yesterday was speaking about calling your video again. He called it creepy and weird. And he said that, again, that you targeting him has just been very unfair. And he said that he's going to be doubling down his investments in Florida rather than New York City. And so I just wanted to get your take. What sort of conversations have you had with him since that video? Have you spoken with him? And what sort of concerns are you having when it comes to potential job losses? Are you looking at ways to, I guess, build up? And your economic development commissioner, have you thought about who you're going to appoint yet? Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll first just start by saying that I want all New Yorkers to succeed. That includes business owners and entrepreneurs who create good-paying jobs, who make this city the economic engine, not just of our state, but frankly of our country.
Okay, that's not true. If you want them to succeed, you want to demonize them all the time. So stop with the BS. What's your real point here?
And that also includes Ken Griffin, who is a major employer in our city. That does not negate the fact, however, that our tax system is fundamentally broken. It rewards extreme wealth while working people.
There it is. There it is. No. We just want to confiscate everything they have. Today, there's an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal. The Wall Street Journal slamming Mamdani for attacking Ken Griffin. Because now they lost more jobs in New York. They're losing more programs in New York. They're losing things that could have employed more people in New York. Zoran Mamdani single-handedly cost New York City billions of dollars. And by the way, this is very reminiscent of AOC. AOC, joined by some former members of the Seattle City Council back when they were on the Seattle City Council, demonized Amazon so much that Amazon decided not to come to New York City and went elsewhere, bringing 25,000 jobs elsewhere. Who was it? Lisa Herbold was one, and was it Teresa Mosqueda was the other? They flew to New York to convince them to kill this deal because Amazon had been so terrible for Seattle. Well, look what you guys did. Your war on Amazon got Amazon to leave Seattle, and now they're in Bellevue. Why did Mamdani pick a guy like Griffin? Why? Why would you pick somebody like this? Is it ideological? Or is it just he's an easy target? Most people probably had no idea who this guy was before then. But clearly they're not putting up with it anymore. And for anybody to say that companies are not fleeing Seattle and not fleeing New York, you have to be completely blind. But the left is embracing this insanity. In fact, they're doubling down on it. The leader of the Democrat Party, it's not Zoran Mamdani. It's not AOC. It's not Chuck Schumer. It's not Nancy Pelosi. It's certainly not Katie Wilson. I would say the leader of the Democrat Party, and has been since he has been in office, has been Barack Hussein Obama. Well, he was on with Stephen Colbert yesterday, and he was talking about how Mamdani is the future of the Democrat Party.
You look at somebody like Mamdani, who I think is an extraordinary talent. He wants people to be able to afford housing in New York. Well, I would assume liberals in New York want the same thing.
Okay. By costing them jobs, they're not going to be able to afford housing. Rent control is going to make things more expensive for everybody. Crack a book. But that is the leader of the Democrat Party saying that he thinks the socialist, Marxist, communist, Islamist is the future of the Democrat Party. That's what he thinks. He thinks that is the future of the Democrat Party. Now, mind you, Obama was left. He wasn't this left. Not even close. But the people who are the thought leaders, who are the leaders of the Democrat Party, are now saying, Mamdani, that's the future. Katie Wilson, her plans, her policies, that's the future. The Democrat Party is a shell of what it once was. It has gone so far left, it's full-blown communism. That is what it is now. There is nothing left of the Democrat Party. They're trying to squeeze out moderates like John Fetterman, who, by the way, 90% of the time does not agree with Republicans. But he's normal enough to say no to terrorism and no to kicking out high earners and jobs. He's smart enough for that. And yet they're trying to primary guys like him here in Washington. In the Washington State Legislature, there's tons of Democrats. They got a Democrat almost supermajority over there. And yet they are primarying some Democrats who on this show we called far lefties. They are primarying them with people even further left because they had the goal to say, you know what, guys, this is a little bit too much. This is a little too insane. For me, I am fine living in New York City under Zoran Mamdani because I can always count on him to do this stupidity. Well, is it pro-terrorism? That's what he's going to do. Is it anti-business? That's what he's going to do. With Katie Wilson, you never know on which day which handler is actually running the show. You have no idea. But make no mistake about it. They have the exact same goal. Seize the means of production, destroy the businesses, make you reliant on government. This isn't an experiment. This isn't accidental. This is what they actually want. And we are seeing it unfold in real time. I think this is 100% intentional. I do. And I'm concerned about where this leaves us. Let me know what you think. Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Up next, your calls and your texts. Plus, also, we know more about the homeless prolific offender who abducted a teen into the woods. We'll give you all the horrifying details when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show.
Give me a yeah!
Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, my friends, subscribe on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. Also, download the KVI app, and you can always stream us over at kvi.com. Looks like a lot of you have a lot to say on our previous segment. We go right to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from Neri in Marysville. Neri, what's going on?
Hey, I have a question. What's the likelihood of Mamdani getting money from, the Muslim Brotherhood, because they're very, 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 very rich people, and using it as pass-through money launderment like the Holy Foundation 2.0.
So here's what you have to look at, okay? If you actually want to look this up, this is all public information. Typically what happens is organizations like that, you're referencing the Holy Land Foundation, which was found by the Justice Department to have sent millions of dollars to Hamas. They were indicted. The heads of the Holy Land Foundation are sitting in jail right now for the largest terror financing trial in U.S. history. CARE was an unindicted co-conspirator. CARE picked up the ball when it fell from the Holy Land Foundation. Let's not forget, Zoran Mamdani rapped about the Holy Land Five, the people sitting in jail, how much he loved them. CARE is now the ones that are donating to a lot of this stuff. So I found some of their stuff in Washington. I haven't looked into New York. But what you need to do is you need to look up people who have affiliations with CARE, and likely they're giving the money to the super PACs or donating to Mamdani's campaign himself. That's how you're going to find it. That's usually what you do. The other thing you need to look at, and we're going to discuss this later in the show, California, the City Journal for the Manhattan Institute, just found a whole bunch of money going from California, I think $40 million to CARE. Here in Washington State, we exposed a few months ago, actually this was a few years ago now when we were talking about October 7th, was that CARE was getting millions of dollars from Washington State. So if you want to know how it goes, that's more the track to follow, and you can look it up exactly where it's running that way. Does that help, man?
Yeah, but I mean, obviously he is removing all the base, all the people that actually offering the job, because the only people that are actually hiring people is rich people. I never got hired by a poor person. So I'm saying if he's defleeting the rich people from New York, who's going to take that place? And
well,
I mean,
Neri, no. It's not going to be. It's not going to be the Muslim Brotherhood. No. It's going to be the city. It's going to be the county. It's going to be the state. Because then when you're reliant on government, then you're going to vote for bigger government for your salary, right?
Yes, but where were you going to get the money out of? Is that like Margaret Thatcher kind of thing?
No, Neri, they're going to get it from you and me. The millionaire tax isn't just for millionaires here in Washington. It's going to be for you and me when all those guys are gone. That's why they hired.
Some game. How you generate the money?
Yeah, they just keep borrowing. Look at our national debt. You think anybody's ever going to pay that one off? That's what's going on, Neri. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from Kenneth at Whidbey Island. Kenneth, what's going on, man?
Well, Ari, for 40 years, I was in the scrap metal business. 30 of those years were done right here in the Seattle area, Snohomish, King County, and so on. Now, King County or the city of Seattle is bad on taxes. You got large corporations leaving. But I can assure you, my friend, that of the many machine shops that I serviced, and they were small, 15 people, 20, maybe 65 people. But those companies are gone. They were taxed out of business. Inventory tax. One of the large machine shops that I had went out because of inventory tax. That money was to go back into buying their machinery and update it. But they gave it away to taxes. They're gone. All of them. I could name them, but I will not. But they're being taxed out. This state is crazy, but this area right here, Ari, has gone crazy. They're nuts.
Oh, yeah. Well, I drive through Georgetown all the time. It's one of the ways I go home when I-5's backed up or 99's backed up or anything, and I go through Georgetown. And I worked in Georgetown for 18 years. I worked in Georgetown. That's where our family business was. And I worked there for so long, and I know the businesses that are supposed to be there. And none of them are there anymore. The place is like a ghost town because so many businesses have left. And you know what a lot of them did? Exactly the industry you're talking about, Kenneth. They left because their customers left, because also it's so hard to do business here with the taxes and the regulations. I'll give you the last word, then I got to run.
Well, that's what I was going to say. The companies that these people were selling to didn't even want to come here anymore.
And how many businesses are now not going to open here because of all the bad PR? Every time Katie Wilson goes viral, and half the time it's my fault, anytime she goes viral, I think to myself, how many businesses did we just cost Seattle, or did she just cost Seattle because of her dumb comments? Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Up next, more of your calls, more of your texts, because it's a hot button issue. But also, we will give you the details on that horrific, prolific offender. And why are people mad at the Children's Hospital helicopter? Give you all details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. The entire media, for the most part, left out some details about that story yesterday, the horrific story about the girl who was waiting for a bus, gets kidnapped by a homeless guy, taken into the woods, horrible things done to her, medics had to come, and the guy was arrested. First of all, most of the media left out he was completely homeless. Just left out that this guy is now facing investigation and charged for rape and kidnapping after he lured a 15-year-old girl from a North Seattle bus stop and dragged her into nearby woods before sexually assaulting her. According to the charging documents we got, and I don't understand, I get the same charging documents as everybody else. Why did the media leave out that he was homeless? So much of the media left out that this guy was homeless. You know what else they left out? He's a prolific offender. He's been charged multiple times. Most recently, last week, he was released. He never should have been on the streets. The teenage victim was waiting at a bus stop when this guy, Joshua Kawasuki, approached her with a bicycle, began asking personal questions, including her age and grade level. The girl told police she informed him she was 15 and in the 10th grade. Police say he repeatedly complimented her, instructed her to follow him into a wooded area. According to police, once inside the woods, he grabbed the girl's arm, forced her against the tree, and I'm not going to describe the rest on the radio. It's awful. A witness told detectives he became alarmed after seeing an adult man speaking with her before the two disappeared into the woods, and moments later he heard screaming. A witness then reported they saw this guy and a crying teenager come out of the woods, with the victim appearing terrified, and the suspect fled northbound on foot. Seattle firefighters and medics treated the girl at the scene before transporting her to Seattle Children's Hospital. Roughly 2 hours later, firefighters spotted a man matching the description at North 107th Street and Stone Avenue North. Now, this is graphic. He was pooping on the sidewalk when they found him. Literally, it's in the charging documents. It's in the charging documents. And yet, all this was left out. What's the motivation for leaving it out? What, you're worried about ticking off the mayor or something? You don't want to admit how bad the homeless situation is? Do you remember years ago, this was back in, 2016, 2017, when the woman got raped at a car dealership here in Seattle by a homeless guy who was hiding out in the bathroom? What was it, a Subaru dealership in North Seattle or something? And I remember people started attacking the woman. How dare you say that he was homeless? How dare you say he was a prolific offender? I think it was Chris Rufo broke that story at the time before he became the Chris Rufo he is now. I think that was his big first story. And what happened? Everybody demonized him and demonized the victim. Why are they not mentioning that he's homeless? Why are they not mentioning that he's a prolific offender with multiple charges? Shoplifting, biting a security guard, domestic violence, fentanyl possession. He'd been diverted to treatment multiple times. In fact, yesterday, I assumed he was a homeless guy when I first heard this story, but I hadn't read the charging documents yet, so I didn't want to make that assumption, but we knew what it was. Why is the media complicit in covering this up? Why are they not saying who this guy actually is? You can guess. Also, here's something else. Why'd the Seattle Police Department not say he was a homeless guy on the blotter? Why they not give all these details on the blotter? Why they not talk about any of this? Oh, right, because our woke police chief probably agrees with the diversion treatment. No, nobody should go to jail in Seattle. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from our friend Transit Joe. Transit Joe, what's up, man?
A lot's going on. I want to get right to the point for your listeners because I know you like to do things fast. Sound Transit Free Realignment Plan came out, and basically it is go to hell, Katie Wilson. The woman, the mayor, that won't condemn anti-Semitism. And now the spine, which is the link going to Tacoma and the link going to Everett is being prioritized over getting to Ballard because the money's just not there. A few other things are also being deferred, like parking garages. And so I've made clear to Seattle leaders that if Mayor Wilson will not condemn anti-Semitism, don't ask me, Mr. Go Sound Transit, to support federal and state assistance to get the Heidi Will station in Ballard done.
Well, while I appreciate that, Joe, and I hear where you're coming from, I don't really get what one has to do with the other, meaning, I know she won't condemn this, and I know Sound Transit board members won't condemn this, but then you look at the problem itself, which is they don't have the money for any of this. They don't have the money to go to Tacoma. They don't have the money to go to anywhere else. So where do you think they're going to get the money from?
They will get the money from state bonds. But the reason why I'm doing this is leverage. It's to force these politicians to realize that there are people who are not going to be supporting them or their communities if they're going to turn a blind eye to anti-Semitism. And I think this is a great time to use our leverage.
Well, I hope you're right. I hope you're right, Joe. I hope it works out. I appreciate you doing that. And it shows how much when you call me all the time to argue with me on behalf of transit, that they've pushed you this close to the edge. I think it really shows how far they've drifted. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take call from Leonard in Shoreline. Leonard, what's up, man?
Hey, I'm okay. You know, as far as, you know, you talked about the fact all these businesses and stuff are leaving Seattle. Well, to give you an example as to what I mean, and what I'm going to let the listeners know is, I had an older brother of mine. I had an older brother of mine named Jimmy. He used to live in Everett, but when he moved to Indianapolis, his phone number is an Indianapolis number, but it's area code 425 instead of the 317.
Okay. What's the point here?
And so the point I'm making is the reason why he left the state, because he wanted to be in a tax-friendly neighborhood.
Yes.
Like Indianapolis.
Yes, as many people are doing right now, just like your brother. Appreciate the call, Leonard. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. One more story before we go to break, because this one's absolutely crazy. I saw this on King 5. I saw this on Fox 13, and I couldn't figure out why this is an issue right now. What is it? People are mad, complaining about helicopters flying children to Seattle Children's Hospital to save their lives. What are they complaining about? The noise. Complaining about the noise. And I thought to myself, why are they complaining now? They've been complaining about years. There's always people who complain about living next to airports or anything else. You move in next to a hospital, you know what you signed up for. There are people who complain about noise from my synagogue all the time. I'm like, it's been there before you moved in. Get used to it. We try to be polite about it. You move in next to a movie theater. You move in next to a club. You know what you're getting into. You move in next to an airport. You know what you're getting into. But I thought to myself, how often are children being medevaced via helicopter to Seattle Children's Hospital? So I looked it up. Would you like to know what they're complaining about? How many times do you figure, Kevin? Unless you saw the story already. How many times a week do you figure these helicopters are landing?
I did hear something about that. I'm going to say in a week.
Yeah, in a week.
5 to 7.
3 at the max. And also, here's something else. A helicopter goes over your house. What is that, 10 seconds? It's not an airplane landing where it just seems like it's over your house forever. It's 10 seconds. How do I know this? During Seafair, those Coast Guard helicopters going past my house all the time, which are basically the same style as the medevac ones. It's 2 seconds. And you're complaining about this? Who's covering this? Who's making this a big deal? The Stranger and the far left outlets. So you cold-hearted you-know-whats are mad that they're trying to save children's lives with a medical evacuation helicopter a maximum of 3 times a week? You kidding me with this?
I saw some stuff, I think it was on Reddit about this as well, and I don't know if this is true.
Yeah.
But there's also rumors that they've cut back on flying directly to the helicopter pad, so they will assess how bad it is and then land, I think, like a mile or two away and then drive.
That's insane.
Yeah, that's the rumor. I don't know if that's true, but that was one of the rumors I heard because they were actually talking about this in the newsroom because it's making the rounds on social media.
I couldn't figure out. They've been complaining about this since the 90s, and I couldn't figure out why it's a big deal now. Was a slow news day over at the Stranger, so they go, let's go advocate for helicopters saving children's lives to not do it anymore.
Well, I think it's somebody on Instagram or one of the social medias where this thing is really gaining some steam amongst people debating it.
People have lost their minds. Absolutely. Cold-hearted. No soul. Even if you don't have children, it's saving people. Even if it's a regular hospital and you're next to it. They only use those helicopters when they have to use the helicopters. Just want to remind everybody during the autonomous zone, You know how much money Seattle got sued for because the medics couldn't get there in time to get to people? What do you think's going to happen if, God forbid, that happens here? You guys didn't learn your lessons the first time? What cold-hearted you-know-whats don't want a helicopter flying over their house for 10 seconds to save a child's life? Speaking of saving lives, Pramila Jayapal thinks she's saving the world, but instead it turns out she's actually a traitor to the United States of America. We're going to tell you what she did to make me use that word when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. I don't usually throw around the words like traitor That's not what I do. But Pramila Jayapal, I think, should be investigated for treason. Because during some public remarks the other day, she said that she has been helping foreign countries provide oil to Cuba, a communist country, in violation of U.S. embargo, U.S. sanctions, you name it, in violation of so many other things. A communist country that for years has been a threat to the United States, has wanted to be a threat to the United States, has wanted to take down the United States, has caused many problems for the United States. You are now literally helping the enemy because you like that communism so much? I mean, this is a woman who opposed letting Cuban refugees come to this country if they voted conservative. She kind of wants to keep them in Cuba, I see. Here's what she said.
In January, Trump issued an executive order threatening tariffs on any country supplying fuel to Cuba. This was this January, just a few months ago. And oil shipments from Venezuela, that's where Cuba had been getting its oil, were halted after the U.S. operations to kidnap Nicolas Maduro. Since January, only one Russian tanker of oil has made it to Cuba. In fact, it landed just a couple of days before I landed. And one tanker has enough oil basically for 10 to 14 days of Cuba's oil needs. So it's a very limited amount of time. Now, Russia has said they're going to send another tanker. I was in conversations with the...
Hang on. So you worked with Russia to bring oil to Cuba? I think she should be investigated for treason. Let me know what you think. Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Up next, Seattle is spending a ton on the World Cup, but expectations are falling short. I'll tell you all about it when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, how much money are we spending on the World Cup here in Washington, even as expectations are falling flat? But before we get to any of that, looks like our friend John over on the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, John from Redmond, wants to weigh in on this craziness with a helicopter at Children's Hospital apparently bothering the neighbors because it's saving children's lives. John, what's going on?
Ari, thank you for covering that. It's so ludicrous. But I want to go back to the 90s when the departure during conditions where airplanes took off to the north. They turned left if they were going east, or turned right, I beg your pardon, and went over Medina, of all places. Oh, it was awful. And so people were calling radio stations, and I listened to one lady say that it was so noisy that I had to close my Dutch doors.
Oh.
And wasn't it awful? And the thing is, where in Washington are more first-class tickets purchased than on the eastern shore of Lake Washington?
Here's something else. Wait a second. John, I mean, I hate to cut you off, but I drive my boat around Lake Washington a lot, and I go past Medina a lot. There's a lot of private airplanes, float planes down there, helicopter landing pads over there. There's a lot of big yachts over there. There's a lot of things that make noise. But God forbid we let the helicopter over there that's changing children's lives.
Yeah, well, the lady calling, complaining about the noise, suggested that they move the departure north over Everett. Let's put it on the little people.
How dare that helicopter? How dare that helicopter come over my house when it's on the way to save children's lives? John, I don't know about you, but my wife does this all the time. I'm not as good as my wife is. I try to do this, but you know, when I'm driving and there's an ambulance coming by, I go ugh, and I kind of pull over the side of the road, and my wife goes, "No, Ari, say a prayer. Somebody's in danger. Pray for them." I'm like, okay, fine, I'll pray for them. My wife is way better about this than I am, right? So if a helicopter is going overhead, give a little prayer. It takes 5 seconds for that thing to go over your house. And people are losing it over this?
Isn't that a wonderful sentiment?
Yes.
That's amazing. That's wonderful.
Yes, exactly. That's what my wife does. She's a way better person than I am. John, appreciate the call. Appreciate the perspective. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. So I asked you guys earlier if you thought Pramila Jayapal was a traitor. Now, I said investigated for treason, and some of you on the text line are mad that I said investigated for treason. Now, I'm going to play this clip one more time so you can see why I said investigated versus actually prosecuted and charged. Here's why. Give a listen.
In January, Trump issued an executive order threatening tariffs on any country supplying fuel to Cuba. This was this January, just a few months ago. And oil shipments from Venezuela, that's where Cuba had been getting its oil, were halted after the U.S. operations to kidnap Nicolas Maduro.
Kidnap Nicolas Maduro. Last time I checked, he's an evil dictator who's wanted on multiple charges of awful, awful things. And you're calling it kidnapping? Okay, nothing treasonous yet. Let's keep going.
Since January, only one Russian tanker of oil has made it to Cuba. In fact, it landed just a couple of days before I landed. And one tanker has enough oil basically for 10 to 14 days of Cuba's oil needs.
Okay, so hang on a second. Last time I checked, Pramila Jayapal was one of those Slava Ukraine folk. So Russia, which is going to war with Ukraine and is making money off the oil by selling their oil to other people, is supplying the oil to Cuba. So basically what you're doing is you're funding the war effort against Ukraine by supporting this? Okay. Is that treasonous yet? Okay, it's not good. Let's keep going.
So it's a very limited amount of time. Now, Russia has said they're going to send another tanker. I was in conversations with the ambassadors from Mexico and some other places, and I know other countries in Latin America are trying to figure out how to get oil there.
Okay, now we got a problem. So in violation of sanctions, in violation of an executive order, in violations of an embargo, you are now talking to these? Are you empowered to negotiate on behalf of the United States? Are you empowered to do that? So did you just talk to them, or did you actually accomplish anything?
But it is a crisis beyond imagination. Just this past Friday on May 1st, Trump signed a broad executive order that widens sanctions and allows for new penalties similar to what we have for Iran and Russia against foreign banks and firms that are dealing with Cuba. And it also reinforces the ban on U.S. tourism. I have called these sanctions an economic bombing of the infrastructure of Cuba. It is illegal. It is against the war. We've been talking about this in Iran, obviously, to bomb the infrastructure of any country.
Okay, that's a little bit of a stretch there, lady. That's a little bit of a stretch. Has she done anything actually treasonous yet? Let's keep going.
That is against international law. This is essentially doing the same thing. It is bombing the infrastructure of Cuba with economic sanctions that essentially ensure that the infrastructure collapses.
Okay. Yes, that's exactly what we're doing. All we have to do is say, give up communism, be our friend, let's be nice, and you get your oil again. In fact, you can get it from us and not buy it from Russia. Pramila Jayapal is so dedicated to communism, she now seems to be going against American law to support communism. So what do you guys think? What do you guys think? Do you think this is actually treasonous? Do you think what she did is actually treasonous, or do you think she's just talking? Here's something else. We have no way of verifying so far that she actually did the thing she said she did, which is why I said there needs to be an investigation. This one here. Ari, it's treason. Lock her up for life, from Ted. Barbara says, sounds like treason to me, Ari. This one here from the 206. Cuba showed the world they are finally off oil. Pramila should promote solar power and windmills. Barb added she should hurry up and move to Cuba. Tom in Seattle says it's treason, and we renewed the firing squads for reasons. Okay, don't threaten members of Congress, people. Don't do that. This one here, John. Ari, you think Jayapal should only be investigated? I think many other Dems in Congress need the same. This one here from the 253. Yes, Jayapal is a traitor and obviously hates Ukraine as well, helping the Russians fund the war. This one here, Dan Smith. Looks like a traitor, sounds like a traitor. Reminds me. Bibi Netanyahu had this line years and years ago. This was back in the 90s, where he said, if it walks like a duck, talks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's a terrorist. I don't know why that stuck with me, but yes, I agree. This one here from Larry, treason at least. This one, Mike in Bothell says Jayapal needs to spend at least 20 years in prison for treason, as well as several other charges for this instance, as well as for a few other things she has done. Yes, Becky in Enumclaw says she's a piece of work. I agree. So I think she should for sure be investigated right now. That's what I think. Maybe that's just what she wants. Did she actually do these things? Is she lying about it? Who knows? Give me a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. So basically what you're saying is that she's taking sides against the United States of America. You know, yesterday, Marco Rubio, during his incredible press conference, which now has a lot of people talking about if he should be the nominee for the GOP in 2028, he talked about what's going on in Cuba a lot better than she did.
On Cuba, oil blockade on Cuba. There's no oil blockade on Cuba per se. Here's what's happening with Cuba, okay? Cuba used to get free oil from Venezuela. Used to give them a bunch of free oil. They would take like 60% of that oil and resell it for cash. It wouldn't even go to benefit the people. So the only blockade that's happened is the Cubans have decided, the Venezuelans have decided we're not giving you free oil anymore. And you can only imagine nowadays, the way oil prices are, no one's giving away free oil, much less to a failed regime. So the problem with Cuba is worse, okay? Their economic model doesn't work. Doesn't work. And the people who are in charge can't fix it. And the reason that I can't fix it is not just because they're communists, that's bad enough, but they're incompetent communists.
So who do you trust on this? Marco Rubio, who's Cuban, whose family fled Cuba, who's the Secretary of State, who says there's no economic blockade. You can actually get the oil, but they were reselling it to make money. And now that Venezuela actually wants to charge for it, the regime is refusing to pay for it because they don't have the money for it, so they're letting their own people suffer. So Pramila Jayapal is now on the side of the communist regime. The communist regime. I want you to contrast people like Pramila Jayapal and the squad with Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio was asked yesterday about America, how he feels about America. And I got to say, the Cuban people, they're an amazing people. The ones that come to this country because they want to escape that country, they will tell you all the time about how failed it is, how terrible communism is. This is why Democrats hate Cubans so much, because they are the most conservative Republican people in the United States of America, such proud Americans, so happy to be here. Marco Rubio was asked about America because, the left and the media love to say America's terrible. He gave the perfect response. Give a listen.
I mean, my hope for America is what it's always been. I think it's the hope I hope we all share. We want it to continue to be the place where anyone from anywhere can achieve anything, where you're not limited by the circumstances of your birth, by the color of your skin, by your ethnicity, but frankly, it's a place where you are able to overcome challenges and achieve your full potential. I think that should be the goal of every country in the world, frankly, but I think in the U.S., we're not perfect. Our history is not one of perfection, but it's still better than anybody else's history. And ours is a story of perpetual improvement. Each generation has left the next generation of Americans freer, more prosperous, safer, and that is our goal as well. But it is a unique and exceptional country, and as we come upon this 250-year anniversary, I think we have a lot to learn and be proud of in our history. It is one of perpetual and continuous improvement, where each generation has done its part to bring us closer to fulfilling the vision that had upon its founding.
What an incredible answer. What an absolutely incredible, fantastic answer. Good on Marco Rubio. Talked about all the reasons that America is excellent, while demonstrating why other countries aren't, and saying we're not perfect, but we're working on getting there. Meanwhile, Pramila Jayapal is, how can I save this communist dictatorship that kills its own people, that prioritizes the oligarchs over their own people, that takes everything it can from its people? That's Pramila Jayapal. That's what Katie Wilson wants for Seattle. That's what Zoran Mamdani wants for New York. That's what all these far left socialists want for our entire country. That's what they want. The 206 says Pramila Jayapal should be sent to live in Cuba among the ordinary people for 6 months, then see how much you like it. Yes, exactly. Jeff and Ken says investigator for treason. I'm betting a whole lot more than this will be found. Gino says, yes, treason. Exactly right. I mean, really, somebody should open up an investigation. The problem is then she's going to fundraise it like, I'm fighting against Trump. Yeah, definitely you should investigate her. Switching gears, something a little bit closer to home. Have you noticed some decorations have been going up for the World Cup? So we discussed the flags on the monorail. By the way, drove past it the other day. Nobody has fixed that somebody whited out the Iranian regime one. Nobody has fixed that. I'm kind of giggling a little bit over that because what are you going to do? You're going to spend the money to restore the Iranian regime, the regime of the Ayatollah to the flag? It's kind of funny. So according to Cairo 7, Seattle is moving to accept more than $18 million in grant funding and contributions to support the city's preparations for the FIFA World Cup, according to legislation introduced before the City Council's Finance, Native Communities, and Tribal Governments Committee. Council Bill 121201 would bring total FIFA-related appropriations for 2025 and 2026 to nearly $32 million. $1 million contribution from local organization committee. The Seattle FWC26, it's called. Roughly $15 million in federal and state grant funding for safety and security, and $2.1 million federal grant for counter-drone operations. Now, I'm all for security. I heard something, and we had somebody from the State Department on a couple weeks ago when we were talking to them about it. Remember, the cameras were big at that time. That's when Katie Wilson was first talking about shutting off the cameras. And we talked to the spokesperson for the State Department, and they said, well, we're in charge of security, not Seattle. So they're not even sure Katie Wilson can turn off the cameras because they get to override that and say, yeah, FBI's in town. We're dealing with this. State Department's in town. We're dealing with this, not Katie Wilson, who, the lights are on, but nobody's home, says one of our texters right here. But that's still a lot of money to be spent on Seattle. Are we going to get our bang for our buck out of this? Because the argument always is it's going to help out all these local businesses. Yeah, but you got a few problems. Do you remember what happened during the Major League Baseball All-Star Game? Bruce Harrell's team put together these maps. And these maps were sent out for the tourists that came to town, given out in hotels and hotspots and restaurants about where you want to go for the All-Star Game. But the problem with these maps was, it was basically, just go in this corridor right here. Don't go here, don't go there. Just go in this corridor right here to keep them away from the homeless. And if you've been driving around the area around Chinatown, which I do pretty frequently, if you've been driving around the area around Capitol Hill and other places, you can see where they are shoving the homeless so that way they can clear basically the route from the hotels downtown to the stadium. They're cleaning up that area because there's no way you can clean up 15 years of bad policies in a month. The World Cup starts next month, literally in June. It starts. And if you've been driving around like I have, they're not doing a great job. They're just pushing everything out of the way. Probably saying, just come back when it's over. Just come back when it's over. We got to move you for now, but just come back when it's over. And they're doing that. And a lot of businesses are complaining because they're not on the map, because they're specifically telling tourists to avoid these areas. Just go in these areas. This is what you want to see. You know what it's like downtown. Remember after the parade, I was walking back to the studio with one of our listeners, and as we're walking back, we went 1 block off the parade route, just 1 block, and there's homeless everywhere because they cleaned up the parade route, hoping nobody would go behind it. You know what it reminds me of? The fake rock ridge that got built in Blazing Saddles. You know, they do it to fool the bad guys from the railroad company. Here's the fake rock ridge. That's what it was like on the parade route. Just go 1 block behind the facade, and you see the real Seattle. Well, according to Como News, Seattle is among several U.S. host cities where hotel bookings are falling short of expectations just weeks before the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Despite more than 5 million tickets sold, demand has yet to translate into strong hotel occupancy. The American Hotel and Lodging Association said in its April 2026 outlook, in Seattle and other markets, including Boston, Philadelphia, and San Francisco, nearly 80% of hotel operators report bookings below expectations, in some cases trailing the typical summer demand. Well, I think there's a few reasons for this. Number one, Seattle, San Francisco don't have the best PR right now. So do you really want to go there for these other reasons? That's number one. Number two is that if you hear the World Cup's coming to town, you might want to avoid that craziness and go somewhere else. My wife and I were discussing moving in with her parents and renting out our house for the World Cup, and then we realized that's really dumb. But we did think about it when we saw how much money you could potentially make from doing that, but we didn't want to take the risk of what could happen to our house. So a lot of people who would normally come here for the cruises or anything else are going to say, you know what, cruises leave from other places. I'm not going to go to Seattle to get that cruise because the World Cup's going there, and I don't want to be involved in that. Now, mind you, you got a few weeks to go, and there's a lot of people who book last minute. But do you think this is the beginning of a trend of Seattle performing below expectations? Don't forget, we had that story a few weeks ago where originally they were saying 1 million people are going to come here for the World Cup, and then it was 750,000, and then it was a little bit less, and a little bit less, and a little bit less. Do you think people have realized what Seattle's all about, and the bad PR from Katie Wilson and years of mismanagement here in Seattle have affected people possibly coming to town for the World Cup? Let me know what you think. Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Well, speaking of San Francisco, the question is, are people going to go there, given the bad PR that's out of California? Well, not just that. There's more bad PR because we found out millions of dollars in fraud has been going to terrorist organizations thanks to Gavin Newsom. We'll give you all details when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder so that you never miss a minute of the show. Download the KVI app, subscribe on whatever your preferred podcast platform is, and also check out KVI.com. There's some new articles up there that young Zach published for me last night that are all ready to go with some of the crazier stories. And in fact, oftentimes you can get those stories before we talk about them on air. So yes, head on over to KVI.com. You can get the news before we even do it over there on the show. Well, I published an op-ed in the New York Post yesterday. The New York Post was kind enough to publish one of the things that I wrote, and it's about welfare fraud here in Washington, but also in Oregon and also in California. Now, I'm going to give you a little piece of this thing because this sets up our next story where now they are finding massive amounts of fraud in California, and it turns out it's going to a terrorist organization. So what I wrote for the New York Post was last week the FBI raided 22 shady daycare businesses in Minneapolis as the federal government expanded its investigation of social services fraud there. On Monday, Vice President J.D. Vance added Columbus, Ohio to its fraud task force agenda in the wake of a new report alleging a $1 billion Medicaid scam. Both investigations were spurred by the dogged work of citizen and independent journalists like Nick Shirley in Minneapolis and Luke Rosiak in Columbus, who knocked on doors and interviewed dozens of supposed service providers to uncover the truth about fraudsters who may have bilked the federal government of billions. Up and down the West Coast, blue state lawmakers have leaped to respond by actively working to make it harder for journalists like me to do our jobs and expose fraud connected to daycare centers. In California, Democrats are pitching AB 2624, dubbed the Stop Nick Shirley Act, with claims that it's a safety measure to protect immigrants and social service workers from harassment. But media watchdogs say it, and Democrats' efforts in other state capitals, constitute a crackdown on independent and citizen journalists who are exposing fraud in our government, and warn that is just the start of a trend that could spread nationwide. Don't forget, my friends, Senator Lisa Wellman here in Washington. When the Nick Shirley thing was going viral, and then me and Jonathan Cho and Kristen Magg and Cam Higbee and others start exposing the fraud here in Washington, all of a sudden what happens? Senator Lisa Wellman, Democrat, decides she's going to pass a bill to hide the locations of the daycares. The blowback was severe. That went viral. Then after that, you remember what happened? Turd Ferguson, just a couple weeks ago, he announces, hey, here's our grants. Here's who's getting our daycare grants. And he hid the information on half of them. I filed a public disclosure request to get the information. They sent me the same thing they sent out before. And I said, you're still missing the information. They are doing everything they can to hide this information. Because when you dig down deep, you're going to find out how bad it really is. Now, Christopher Rufo, friend of the show from Seattle, Washington, now working for City Journal, the Manhattan Institute, Department of Education. He's everywhere. He put out a story for City Journal talking about how California Governor Gavin Newsom granted more than $40 million to the radical Islamist group CARE California. Oh, you mean the Council for American Islamic Relations? How many times have I warned you guys about these guys? Our investigative team traced the flow of funds and discovered that CARE then funneled some of this cash to groups with alleged terror ties. So it wasn't bad enough that the Somali fraud was going to terrorists out there like Al-Shabaaz. Now we're finding out that the money that's being defrauded out of California is now going to terrorist groups that are affiliated with CARE, the Council for American Islamic Relations. Do you know who that means? Hamas, Hezbollah. We literally had a group from CARE running a movie night the other night with the students from the University of Washington so that they could raise money for the Lebanese resistance, a.k.a. Hezbollah. I mean, these are the guys who founded CARE. Omar Ahmad and Nihad Awad were leading members of the U.S. Muslim Brotherhood's Palestine Committee. That committee effectively became the U.S.-based Hamas infrastructure, according to a George Washington University Program on Extremism report. In October of 1993, a meeting planned by the Palestine Committee, secretly monitored by the FBI, participants also discussed how to support Hamas's efforts as well as help derail the Oslo Accords. So now you are sending the money that is defrauded from the American taxpayer to terrorist organizations? Is anybody surprised? Gee, I wonder why they're covering up all this alleged fraud. So you don't find out that Gavin Newsom allowed $40 million to be funneled to terrorist organizations, especially when he's planning on running for president? I didn't get a chance to read through my entire op-ed. But if you want to read my op-ed, you can check it out at the New York Post. If you need a link to it, you email me, arikvi.com. That's arikvi.com. And I will send you the entire article from the New York Post. But why do you think that they were trying to hide this so badly? Oh, because literally your taxpayer dollars are going to known terrorist groups. And just to bring this back home for a second here, I will remind you that the director of CARE Washington, Imran Siddiqui, is currently running for the Washington State Legislature against Democrat Lauren Davis. Lauren Davis is pretty far left, but recently she's been saying, you know, these juvenile programs that we were trying to run to divert kids out of jail, they just ain't working. We need a new approach. So apparently, because she is out of the Democrat orthodoxy, they are saying, yeah, you're not left enough for us. So they're putting up somebody who's got ties to terror to run against her, and he's running as a Democrat. He's endorsed by Rashida Tlaib and others because you can never be left enough for the far left. So you literally have the guy who's running this organization here in Washington running for the Washington State Legislature. I kid you not. This is what's going on. Up next, my friends, speaking of terror groups, anti-Semitism on campus is getting better, according to a new report. So why is it getting so much worse in cities like New York? Oh, wait, I forgot who runs in New York. We'll give you all the details when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. There's a fascinating new report out from the Anti-Defamation League. And yes, I have about as good of opinion of them as a Southern Poverty Law Center. So take this with a grain of salt. But the Associated Press decided that they were going to write up this report. And what they wrote is the number of anti-Semitic incidents in the United States, tallied by the Anti-Defamation League, declined sharply in 2025, the first drop in 5 years, due in part to what the ADL said was a dramatic decrease of incidents on college campuses. Stop. This entire sentence is garbage because I looked at the report. They say there's a decrease in anti-Semitism. First of all, the ADL numbers are by people who are donors to the ADL who report things to the ADL. They do not actually have crime numbers. They do not actually have FBI statistics. So number one, your numbers, your data is in doubt. But number two, you're saying the decline is largely because of college campuses. But if you actually read the numbers of this report, it's on the rise everywhere except college campuses, which shows you how out of control the college campuses were, was that a lot of this was happening at these universities. Now, I went through this entire article right here. And in fact, I'm going to do it now with you on the air, okay? Because you think to yourself, hey, wait a second. Is this because of the Trump administration? Are they going to call that out? Are they going to say it's going to be the Trump administration that's going to deal with it anywhere? No, one little line. One little teensy tiny line here. So they say the ADL tallied 1,694 anti-Semitic incidents on U.S. college campuses in 2024 after pro-Palestinian anti-Zionist students protests proliferated due mostly to the Israel-Hamas war in Gaza. Well, that's interesting. Not, because they want to wipe out Israel and support terror groups? Okay, it's still the Associated Press. That figure fell by 66% in 2025 to 583 as many colleges and universities, under pressure from President Donald Trump's administration, took steps to curb such protests. Wait a minute. What's the quiet part they're not saying here? The quiet part they're not saying is the Biden administration didn't do jack squat and enabled it to go on that entire time. So the Trump administration actually made the point of doing something about this. Look at University of Washington. So University of Washington, since President Trump has been in office, has been relatively quiet. Relatively, I say, not completely. Have they had a couple protests? Sure. Have there been a couple lunatics on protests? Sure. But now the University of Washington is taking these things seriously and saying, we're not going to let you have the run of campus anymore, and bringing out tons of cops. Turning Point USA had one of those pick up the mic events with Nick Freitas over on campus just last week. And it didn't get out of hand. One person got arrested. There wasn't any violence except for that one person who spat at him. Why? Because the university sent a platoon of cops over there to say, no, we're not dealing with this anymore. We're not putting up with your nonsense anymore. We're just not going to do it. Here's something else. I think that a lot of these lunatics are now worried about federal charges. Look, if they truly believe that ICE and federal agents are everywhere under every single corner, then of course they're going to be on the college campuses as well. And they don't want big boy time. We're seeing person after person after person finally getting charged in Portland and other cities. Now, what's fascinating about this study is that anti-Semitism may be on the decline at the universities, but it's on the rise in cities. Last night, there was an event at a synagogue, an Israel event at a synagogue. And what happened? 100 of Hamasniks showed up at the synagogue, the same synagogue which was violently attacked a few months before Zoran Mamdani got into office, which actually triggered the whole discussion about whether or not we should have buffer zones around the synagogues, which Zoran Mamdani was opposed to. So they show up last night and get violent with the police department. Nothing's gotten better in these cities because they know that Zoran Mamdani won't do anything about it. They know that Zoran Mamdani actually supports these lunatics. In fact, it's so bad his administration is making efforts to remove Jews, to remove anything involving Israel, and he got asked about it at a press conference today.
EDC recently removed a page promoting Israeli businesses. I said the Economic Development Corporation recently removed a page promoting Israeli businesses in New York City. I'm wondering, why did that occur? And I'm wondering, does that have to do with your sort of expressed views about Israel, the rights of Palestinians, And furthermore, does this suggest any sort of shift in the city's treatment of Israeli businesses or Israeli companies in the city?
I can get back to you on the specifics of that.
I can get back to you. Gee, who had it removed? I wonder. Who had that thing removed? That's a real head scratcher. I don't think this is a real Kaiser Sose situation here, where you really have to get to the bottom of who had that thing taken out of the Economics Council. There's this other story from the New York Post where apparently another Miss Israel, not the one who was here, but last year's Miss Israel. I think ours, the one who was here, was from 2 years ago. The Miss Israel, who is the most recently crowned Miss Israel, was hanging out in a coffee shop. And guess who she accidentally sits down next to? Zoran Mamdani's wife. So she starts taking pictures and selfies, realizing exactly who she's sitting next to. Zoran Mamdani's wife, who's been posting all this anti-Semitic, anti-Israel stuff, death to Israel, pro-Hamas stuff. And before she tells her that she's Miss Israel, she's getting all these pictures. And then all of a sudden in the video that she's taking, you see Zoran Mamdani's wife all of a sudden just not want to talk to her anymore and move away from her. Who was the one who censored that stuff from the council? Who's the one who's encouraging these pro-Hamas protests? Oh, and by the way, my favorite part of all this is last night, Zoran Mamdani's office. Normally you do like we condemn what happened. He says he condemns the event because he doesn't like what's going on in Israel. So he justified the lunatics showing up at this event. Gee, why is anti-Semitism in the rise in cities like Seattle and in New York? This is just like what happened a couple of weeks ago at Town Hall. Still haven't heard anything out of Bob Ferguson, Katie Wilson, Gurmeh Zahalai, Adam Smith, none of them, about the violence targeting a Jewish event in downtown Seattle. This is only going to get worse. Only going to get worse. Up next, my friends, we bring back a segment we haven't done in quite a long time around here. Good Guy with a Gun, where a man saved his wife and kids from a would-be criminal. We'll give you all details when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KBI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, download the KVI app and subscribe on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. That way you never miss a minute of the show. Also, check out kvi.com where you can see some content even before it goes on air, because I do my nightly prep, put up my articles, and then they go on the show. So, yeah, you can actually see it a few hours before the show if you want to be ahead of the news. I have a lot of you actually texting me about what's going on in Leshai, with the Blue Water Bistro, with Leshai Market, with how Parks and Rec decided to just shut down the marina, shut down the parking lots, and it's affecting the businesses badly over there. I have requests for comment out to Parks and Rec, to the Seattle Department of Transportation. I'm going to have that story for you tomorrow, because Parks and Rec was pretty dumb to put some things in a statement to me. We will have that story for you tomorrow, how they basically started this project right before the busy season on a marina without telling any of the local businesses. We'll have that one for you tomorrow, I promise, okay? We'll make sure that you guys have all the information you need on the local stuff. And meanwhile, our friend Kirby Wilbur, who was kind enough to give me his radio show, used to do a segment called Good Guy with a Gun. So I saw this story, and I said, a lot of listeners have been asking for more good guy with a gun stories. Saw this one, and I said, let's do it. From the Post-Millennial. A Texas father fatally shot a man who attempted to carjack his vehicle while his wife and young children were inside. It has since been discovered that the perpetrator was 30-year-old Jose Ramirez, an illegal alien. Fox News said the incident occurred Sunday afternoon in Garland, Texas, after a driver crashed into two vehicles around 3:30 p.m., then fled to a nearby gas station where he allegedly attempted to take multiple vehicles by force. According to a local Fox affiliate, surveillance footage showed the suspect approaching a white Chevy Impala parked in the shopping lot center. The man reportedly approached the driver's door, prompting the father to exit the vehicle. The father, whose car was occupied by several young children and two adult women, confronted the suspect after the alleged carjacker attempted to pull him away from the vehicle. A struggle followed as a young boy and the rest of the family fled from the car. Police said the father then produced a firearm and fired over 10 rounds at the would-be carjacker. The suspect was transported to a hospital where he later died from his injuries. Authorities have not yet identified the suspect, but they described him as a Hispanic male. No member of the family was injured in the incident. The father was fully cooperative with investigators, handing over his firearm as part of the investigation. Police are not expecting to file charges against him. Oh, I love Texas. I love Texas. If this was Seattle, Washington, they'd probably be suing him and charging the guy with the gun. Quote, the driver was defending himself and was fighting with that suspect. The car was occupied by several children as well as two other female adults, said the police. The driver was defending himself and was fighting with that suspect. That's right. He said, we are looking at this as a self-defense case. We're also looking into why the suspect did what he did. Oh, because he's an illegal alien? Maybe that's what. Gee, why was he trying to steal a car? Why was he trying to get away? I don't know. Have you seen this crazy video out of Spokane, Washington? So this woman apparently was drunk and decided to try and run down a juvenile who was on a dirt bike. And so the kid's running away from this car. Somebody did a great job with this on social media. They put the Terminator 2 music to it. So it's like John Connor running away from the T-1000 in the truck. So a Spokane County, Washington woman was arrested after deputies say she tried to run down a kid riding a dirt bike and then attempted to enter a stranger's home while drunk. Deputies, according to the Spokane Sheriff's Office, were called to the 7500 block of South Fruitvale Road at around 6:05 p.m. after reports of a reckless and aggressive driver. That's an understatement, by the way. In the video, you see a silver sedan allegedly driven by Wendy Clemente, 56, onto the sidewalk in an attempt to run down a juvenile rider before chasing the child along the sidewalk and fleeing the scene. The juvenile was not hit or injured. If you head on over to my X account, that's The Hawfather. You can see the video for yourself. It's up there. Witnesses provided deputies with cell phone video of the incident, giving investigators probable cause to search for the driver. Around 25 minutes later, deputies were called to a possible residential burglary roughly a mile away. The homeowner, who was not present, told authorities he was watching live security footage of a suspect trying door handles at his residence. Deputies arrived, found the car, found Clemente, parked in the victim's driveway. She was arrested at the scene. After being advised of her rights, she told deputies she had taken her dog for a ride to find other dogs and socialize with. Claims she didn't remember what happened, denied consuming alcohol or drugs, but later admitted to drinking according to the authorities. And then, when they attempted to put her in a patrol vehicle, she resisted and allegedly tried to kick a deputy. A blood sample was taken for testing, and guess what? Now they've got her booked on DUI charges. Way cooler if it was the T-1000, though. I don't know how you would arrest the T-1000. I know how that movie went down. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. Zoran Mamdani, Katie Wilson. This is an intentional war they have against businesses in their cities and states. We'll give you all details when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, the lefties are getting even more mad about a helicopter that saves children's lives. You can't make this stuff up. But before we get to any of that, my friends, Zoran Mamdani and Katie Wilson are trying to destroy the business climates of their respective cities. Now, we know that Katie Wilson chased out Starbucks. We know that Pramila Jayapal also went after Starbucks. Now she's attacking REI. We know that the Seattle City Council demonized Amazon so bad that they left town. And you would think that maybe New York would learn from our mistakes. But no. Instead, Zoran Mamdani goes, socialism just hasn't been done right yet. Communism just hasn't been done right yet. Do you remember on April 15th, tax day, when Zoran Mamdani made a video where he was gleefully talking about taking people's money?
When I ran for mayor, I said I was going to tax the rich. Well, today, we're taxing the rich. I'm thrilled to announce we've secured a pied-à-terre tax, the first in New York's history. This is an annual fee on luxury properties worth more than $5 million, whose owners do not live full-time in the city. Like for this penthouse, which hedge fund CEO Ken Griffin bought for $238 million. This pied-à-terre tax is specifically designed for the richest of the rich, those who store their wealth in New York City real estate, but who don't actually live here. But even so, they're able to reap the huge financial rewards of owning property in, dare I say, the greatest city in the world. And most of the time, these units are sitting empty, since again, they don't actually live here. This is a fundamentally unfair system that hurts working New Yorkers. Now, it's coming to an end. This tax will raise at least $500 million directly for the city. It'll help fund things like free childcare, cleaner streets, and safer neighborhoods. As mayor, I believe everyone has a role to play in contributing to our city, and some a little bit more than others. Happy tax day, New York.
Really dumb move. Really dumb move, because Ken Griffin has paid billions of dollars in taxes. And Ken Griffin has multiple projects, including one that's worth $6 billion, never mind the jobs that come with it, never mind the employees that come with it. And now everybody's wondering what he was going to do with this 350 project. Well, now the question is he going to keep it in New York, or is he going to move it to Miami? There was a business summit yesterday where he was one of the featured panelists, one of the featured speakers. And he got asked what is he going to do with this project in response to Zoran Mamdani.
So where does that leave us at 350 Park?
That leaves us with the fact that we went to Miami and revised our building plan to make it a bigger office building.
You're bailing?
So what do we do with 350 is still a point of discussion internally. But what is no longer a point of discussion is that Miami is now, you know, when we moved from Chicago, there was a debate between New York and Miami. It's unquestionably true that we made the right choice. I'll leave it at that. It's unquestionably true that we made the right choice. And now what the mayor of New York has made clear to my partners, and principally my New York partners, is that we need to double down on our bet in Miami, because we want to be in a state that embraces business, that embraces education, that embraces personal freedom and liberty, and that embraces people having an opportunity to live the American dream.
So Zoran Mamdani just cost New York a massive amount of money. Single-handedly, he cost New York billions of dollars. Hey, Zoran, Katie Wilson, you guys do realize that for you to be able to spend taxpayer money, you need a tax base. And if these companies are leaving, you don't have a tax base anymore. Instead, what you have done is chase them away. Now, Zoran Mamdani's now in the hot seat because of this. So they asked him what he thought about this now that Ken Griffin is talking about moving his project to Miami.
Ken Griffin yesterday was speaking about calling your video again. He called it creepy and weird. And he said that, again, that you targeting him has just been very unfair. And he said that he's going to be doubling down his investments in Florida rather than New York City. And so I just wanted to get your take. What sort of conversations have you had with him since that video? Have you spoken with him? And what sort of concerns are you having when it comes to potential job losses? Are you looking at ways I guess, build up? And your economic development commissioner, have you thought about who you're going to appoint yet? Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll first just start by saying that I want all New Yorkers to succeed. That includes business owners and entrepreneurs who create good-paying jobs, who make this city the economic engine not just of our state, but frankly of our country.
Then why are you penalizing them? If you want them to succeed, why are you making it harder for them to succeed?
And that also includes Ken Griffin, who is a major employer in our city. That does not negate the fact, however, that our tax system is fundamentally broken. It rewards extreme wealth while working people are pushed to the brink. It is a status quo that is unsustainable, that is unjust. And if we want the city to be one that working people can actually afford to live in, then we need meaningful tax reform that includes the wealthiest New Yorkers paying their fair share.
Tax reform. What is the fair share? I hear this all the time. They need to pay their fair share. What is that magic number? What is the fair share? Well, basically, it just means till we take everything you have, every dime. It's like a trip to Disney. They have a character by the front gates now. I don't know if you know about this. Grabs you by the ankles, turns you upside down, and shakes you till every dime you have left in your pockets falls into their hands. Just like Disney. Takes every dime you have. That's what they're doing. Now, socialism, communism, this is the future of the Democrat Party. This is the direction it's going in. Who's the real leader of the Democrat Party right now, nationally? It's Barack Obama. He had a sit-down with Stephen Colbert, and he was all excited about this. Let's not forget, Barack Obama is a lefty, but a lot of his lefty insanity was stifled because he wanted a second term, because he knew he couldn't get some things through Congress, so he couldn't be as lefty as he wanted to be. Now you're hearing the real Barack Obama, the one who doesn't need to get elected again, and he's fully embracing the Katie Wilson, Zoran Mamdani model.
You look at somebody like Mamdani, who I think is an extraordinary talent. He wants people to be able to afford housing in New York. Well, you know, I would assume liberals in New York want the same thing.
So basically, he wants to be able to take other people's property and give it to the people. That's what he wants to be able to do. What's crazy is Barack Obama had some real doozies he said to Stephen Colbert during this interview. Listen to this crazy one. Listen to what he said about the Republican Party.
The center is nonpartisan, but you yourself are still a member of the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
There's a debate on what the direction of the Democratic Party should be. It looks like it's going to be a fairly good midterm election for the Democrats. Chance to take the House, if not the Senate. But there's a big debate on what the leadership would be like going forward. Mm-hmm. Basically, it's liberals versus the left, to be very reductive about it. As my children say to me, Dad, you're a liberal. We're leftists. Because they're like, liberals are people who think things should basically stay the same. You know what I mean? And the next generation really wants things to change. So
hang on a second. That's an important distinction right there. They think they're more left than Stephen Colbert, his kids. Leftist extremists. That's the direction. And the kids are freely admitting it, and he's laughing about it. Oh, I'm so proud about this. They're going to be a bunch of Hamas supporters. They're going to be a whole bunch of anti-capitalist, anti-American people. Oh, wasn't it nice that we made millions of dollars on TV so we could fund these leftists to go to whatever elite institution they went to brainwash them into becoming even bigger leftists?
So you have great leaders. You have people like Abigail Spanberger and Mikey Sherrill, very centrist.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Did he just call two of the most hardcore leftist Democrats centrist? You think they're centrist? Well, I guess if you're looking at the spectrum of the Democrat Party, those two are centrist.
But then you have further left, like AOC or Zoran Mamdani. What direction do you think would be best for this party to actually achieve change?
Well, two things I want to say. First, you're right. The presidential center is nonpartisan.
Okay, one thing here. This interview was done at his new library, the presidential center. Nonpartisan. Oh, please. I assume they have a whole exhibit on Obamacare. Nonpartisan, my you-know-what. But something else about this. They dubbed in those cheers. There's no audience there. Nobody's there. They dubbed that in. That's why it was so abrupt. That's why they didn't pause for it. There's no cheers. They dubbed that into the show. And also the trained SEALs, even if they were in the audience clapping for that. I remember when I went to go see Kamala Harris's speech here to see how many times she got interrupted. And the crazy thing to me was she said, yeah, we're so excited about Zoran Mamdani, and the whole room applauded and cheered. He's a communist. He's not a Democrat. He just identifies as a Democrat, so you clapping seals will vote for the guy. That wasn't the craziest part. Let's hear what Obama says.
And the reason I want to mention that is because I'm worried about the Republican Party, not just the Democratic Party. When I was president, people would ask me, well, what change would you like to see in Washington? I'd say, I'd love a loyal opposition. I'd love a Republican Party that was conservative in some ways, that didn't agree with me on a whole bunch of stuff, but believed in rule of law and judicial independence and empirical evidence and science, and
nobody in that room again.
Constantly tapping into our worst impulses. And there has been a Republican Party like that in the past, and I want to see that returned because I think you have to have two healthy parties.
What does that mean, a loyal opposition? I want you to be loyal to me, even though you oppose me. Just go along with my crazy leftist agenda. Why can't you just go along with me? Why can't you just go along with making healthcare more expensive? Why can't you just go along with all the craziness and raising taxes? Why can't you just go along with my green energy insanity? Why can't you just go along with that? That's why they're called the opposition there. That's why they're called the opposition. Then he said this.
It's this struggle between the idea that we, the people, includes everybody.
During a taped interview on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, Colbert asked former President Barack Obama about the expanding powers of the executive branch and what powers he believes whoever is the president should not have.
The White House shouldn't be able to direct the Attorney General to go around prosecuting whoever the president wants prosecuted.
Hang on. Somebody want to refresh my memory on that? Didn't he literally have Merrick Garland that was Joe Biden. Did he literally have Merrick Garland going around, through Joe Biden, attacking Republicans? Didn't Joe Biden do that? Wait, what did Barack Obama exactly do? He had the IRS go after religious groups, conservative groups, hold up their 501c3 numbers. He literally used his Justice Department to target Republicans. And he's saying he doesn't want Republicans doing that. Oh, hey, kettle, meet pot. That's literally what this is here, you lunatic. By the way, have you seen the new presidential center? Have you seen the presidential library? It is one of the ugliest buildings I've ever seen in my entire life. Now, I've been to a few of the presidential libraries. The most magnificent one is Ronald Reagan's. Not just because it's Ronald Reagan's, but it's truly magnificent. Out in California, out in the hills, you got that Air Force One right in the middle of this giant room filled with the windows. It's magnificent. You walk out of there wanting to be president. I went to Lyndon Johnson's library. You may say, why were you there, Ari? Because I happen to be in the neighborhood and I'm a dork when it comes to history and I want to check it out. It's a mid-century modern looking place. Smells like a mid-century modern house that hasn't been updated yet. You know what I'm talking about. It looks and smells like that 1960s, 70s thing where they thought everything like shag carpets was chic, and now it just smells like old people. That's what that library is like. It also has this weird thing where it's got a robot of Lyndon Johnson, which is one of the creepiest things I've ever seen. George W. Bush's library, mostly about 9/11 and baseball. It's interesting. It's no great shakes. See, I'm being bipartisan about this. It's no great shakes. But the Barack Obama, it is this giant, ugly metal spire, I guess, for lack of a better word. It just looks like somebody took a brick and turned it on its side, but like a gray cement brick. It is one of the ugliest things I have ever seen. I'll give it its day in court. I used to go to Chicago more often when my grandparents were alive. I'll check it out at some point just out of pure curiosity. It is ugly. What do you think the exhibits are in there? Hey, look how I made your healthcare more expensive. Hey, look how I gave billions of dollars to Iran. Hey, look how I made race relations so much worse in this country. Hey, look how I emboldened terrorism. What? Really? Look how I targeted my opposition with a pen and a phone. Look what I did. Largest expansion of executive powers under my presidency. Now I'm all mad at Trump for using the powers I expanded. Really? That's what it is now. It just makes me mad. Barack Obama's still running the Democrat Party. So are you surprised that he's embracing this far left? Because he wants to stay relevant, and that's what he always was. He was a college professor type. He was a college type, radically indoctrinated by people in the weather underground, more college radical types from the 1960s. This is the new version of the radicals from the 1960s. The keffiyeh-clad, blue hair-dyed, lefty lunatics you see out in the street right now. That's the new version of it. They're the ones who think that the 1960s was some glorious time for protesting and revolutionaries. Yeah, it wasn't. It wasn't at all, but they still are supporting full-on communism. Full-on communism. You've got Pramila Jayapal, our very own Washington State Democrat, who is now talking about how she's been working with foreign countries to supply fuel to Cuba. So, in violation of U.S. sanctions, in violation of executive orders, in violation of U.S. law, you're working with Cuba?
In January, Trump issued an executive order threatening tariffs on any country supplying fuel to Cuba. This was this January, just a few months ago. And oil shipments from Venezuela, that's where Cuba had been getting its oil, were halted after the U.S. operations to kidnap Nicolas Maduro. Since January, only one Russian tanker of oil has made it to Cuba. In fact, it landed just a couple of days before I landed. And one tanker has enough oil basically for 10 to 14 days of Cuba's oil needs. So it's a very limited amount of time. Now, Russia has said they're going to send another tanker. I was in conversations with the ambassadors from Mexico and some other places.
Hang on a second. So you're getting Russian oil for Cuba. I thought you were big on Ukraine. I thought you were one of those Slava Ukraine. So now you're buying the oil from Russia to give to the communist country of Cuba. Just making sure I got that right. Oh, also, here's the other thing. Here's how badly she misrepresented the entire situation. Thank God we have Marco Rubio, who's actually Cuban, who can tell the truth about what's happening because it's nothing what Pramila Jayapal said.
On Cuba, oil blockade on Cuba. There's no oil blockade on Cuba per se. Here's what's happening with Cuba, okay? Cuba used to get free oil from Venezuela. Used to give them a bunch of free oil. They would take like 60% of that oil and resell it for cash. It wouldn't even go to benefit the people. So the only blockade that's happened is the Cubans have decided, the Venezuelans have decided we're not giving you free oil anymore. And you can only imagine nowadays, the way oil prices are, no one's giving away free oil, much less to a failed regime. So the problem with Cuba is worse, okay? Their economic model doesn't work. And the people who are in charge can't fix it. And the reason that I can't fix it is not just because they're communists, that's bad enough, but they're incompetent communists.
Exactly. So because of their own failed policies of communism, they can't get oil. They can't afford oil because eventually you run out of other people's money. You want to know what direction Seattle's going in? You want to know what direction New York's going in? You want to know what direction the Democrats want to take the country in? Cuba. That's the way they want to go. So because of their failed policies, they can't afford oil. And because they can't afford oil, because they were getting it for free from Venezuela, which was another communist country, which apparently Pramila Jayapal's really mad that we arrested the dictator who killed his own people, said we kidnapped him instead. Now she wants to make sure to help out the communist country. Sounds like treason to me, doesn't it? This is who's representing you here in Seattle, everybody. Pramila Jayapal. This sounds treasonous. I think there should be a full investigation into what she's actually doing. Because clearly she doesn't know what she's talking about. Is she actually accomplishing the thing she said she is? Because now you're talking about buying money, you're buying oil from Russia and giving it to a communist regime. Russia's using that money to fund their war against Ukraine. The Democrats funding their own problems? People funding the Southern Poverty Law Center, funding the Ku Klux Klan has nothing on her. She's got a higher body count if this is all true, because think of how many people are dying in Ukraine because she's helping to fund Russia. Yeah, tell me again about the Slava Ukraine insanity. Up next, my friends, a little bit more local. Why are lefty residents of a specific neighborhood mad about Seattle Children's Hospital? We'll tell you the insane reason when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show's Final Hour free-for-all. Your calls, your texts, your thoughts, your stories, streaming on KVI.com and the KVI app, which you should download right now. Lots of reaction to the Obama Presidential Library. This one here from the 706. Of course, the Obama Presidential Library is ugly. It's typical communist architecture. This one from the 253. Obama's AG was Eric Holder. Eric Holder! Right on the tip of my tongue. I kept saying Merrick Garland. Eric Holder. How could I forget Eric Holder? The guy behind that movie series, Fast and Furious. Oh, wait. That wasn't a movie series. That was when they decided to give guns to illegal alien drug runners. And it killed a Border Patrol agent. Oh, how could I forget Eric Holder? Yeah, Dan Smith says that the Obama Presidential Library looks like the Borg Cube. Nah, you know why? Borg Cube had more character. It had the little green lights everywhere and all that. This is just this big, ugly thing. Big, ugly thing. Kevin's a Star Wars guy. He's all mad about the Star Trek stuff. This one here. Obama is still thinking he knows what the bleep he's talking about. He's a very crazy lunatic, says the 360. Yes, I would agree. Did anything in our country get better under Obama? Anything whatsoever? No, of course not. Certainly not healthcare. Speaking of healthcare, by the way, I'm going to read this story from King 5 because they are the wokest TV outlet in town. So that way you can get their perspective on this. Seattle Children's Hospital says ongoing efforts by some Laurelhurst residents to limit helipad access are adding strain to emergency transports for children who need life-saving care. On Tuesday, a person claiming to be a medical pilot posted about his concerns regarding chopper flights to Seattle Children's Hospital on X, which led to a larger discussion on Reddit. King 5 News reached out to Seattle Children's Hospital to confirm the pilot's claims. According to that pilot, helicopters flying children to Seattle Children's Hospital have to weigh whether transport is urgent enough to land at the hospital or whether to land a mile away and take the patient by ambulance because of noise concerns in the surrounding neighborhood. Oh. Are the poor Laurelhurst residents upset that a life-saving helicopter is bringing children to a hospital for treatment to save their lives? Are you kidding me with this nonsense? Oh, it's a noise complaint. Oh, no, the helicopter. I assume these things are coming and going all day then. It must be pretty bad, coming and going all day. Look, I know when those Coast Guard helicopters go past my house for seafair, they're loud. I can deal with it. In a statement Tuesday, the hospital says it receives a grand total of 3 or fewer helicopter transports per week. 3 or fewer. I was going to say, how often are they medevacing children to Seattle Children's Hospital? 3 or fewer. And nearly all of those patients are admitted to an intensive care unit. So you're telling me the choice is, do we bother the people with noise and save the kid's life, or land a mile away, put them in an ambulance, takes a little longer, but we don't bother the people up on Laurelhurst neighborhood? Every second counts when a child needs life-saving care. And Seattle Children's, they say, will always put the health and safety of our patients first. Most members of the Laurelhurst community are supportive and grateful for the services and care Children's has delivered for decades. However, ongoing efforts by some to restrict helipad access, which is helipad access for sick children, puts an unnecessary burden on the system. For context, Children's receives 3 or fewer helicopter transports per week, and nearly all are admitted to the intensive care unit. We are eager to revisit the voluntary agreement Children's has been operating under and welcome the support of the community members or city leaders who would like to join in the conversation. Okay. The hospital posts its helicopter landing reports every 6 months, so you can even check this. But still, some Karens in the community are mad that these helicopters are going overhead. Look, my wife's a very sweet person, very sweet person. Anytime we're driving in the car and an ambulance goes by, I get mad because all of a sudden I have to pull over. She says a prayer. She's better than I am. She's much better than I am. Say a prayer for the person in the ambulance. Hope everybody's okay. I'm not that compassionate, but she is. She's a lovely person. Our wives make us better. We all know this, right, men? So, anywho, when the helicopter goes overhead to Children's Hospital, assume it's going for a reason. You know, I'm teaching my daughter how to drive, and there's something I haven't told her about yet. We go to Einstein's Bagels in University Village because that's the kosher bagel shop around here. Have you ever been on the parking structure, the relatively new parking structure they built out at U Village? You know there's a helicopter landing area up there, right, for emergencies. They have it up there. I haven't fully explained that to her yet, what's up there in the parking area, that one day a helicopter may come out of nowhere. You got to be cautious of that if there's a medical emergency up there. They're trying to save children, and people are complaining about noise. Hey, why don't you go live in the 5 towns of New York, which is right next to JFK and LaGuardia, and see how much you like that? Here's something else. When you move in next to a hospital, assume they have a helicopter landing pad. Just assume that. I remember this years ago. My grandmother, when she was still alive, God rest her soul, when she was still alive, she would call me anytime there was some kind of disaster or emergency anywhere in Washington, thinking it was right next to my house. So my grandmother calls me one day, Ari, are you okay? Yes, Grandma, I'm fine. Why are you worried? I saw there was a helicopter crash. Grandma, you talking about the one at Como News? That one? Yeah, are you okay? Grandma, I don't live in a Como News building. There's not apartments around there. It's where the Space Needle is. I was so worried because I know you live in Seattle and that helicopter. My grandma called me worried about it that day. Ironically, years later, I'd end up working in that building. But that was something she was concerned about. Really was.
Do you ever find yourself kind of turning into your grandparents or your parents? It's like that Progressive insurance commercials. Because I know, I have friends in Germany, we have family in Croatia or something. Yeah. And then it's like you have a need when you hear about something. They're like, I better check on them. And then you're thinking, well, it's an entire country, dummy.
Yes.
Like, I'm sure if they would have had problems, you would have heard by now. But
right.
It's nice to know that, Granny was thinking of you, right?
Yeah, like, exactly.
Even, an excuse to reach out.
She called me during the Uso mudslides, right? She called me to be like, you okay? I'm like, yeah, Grandma, I don't live anywhere. She called me during flooding. She called me during anything. But, I miss Grandma. She was always concerned about that.
It was the same with the autonomous zone or whatever, with the Chaz, Chop, all that nonsense. I had family members from across the country asking me if I'm okay. I'm like, I live in North Seattle. That's on Capitol Hill.
Well, see, I had it a little different. I had my uncle from B'nai Brak in Israel. Just so you understand, these people don't have cell phones, TVs, anything. He read about the autonomous zone in a Yiddish newspaper. So he calls me from his dumb phone to be like, are you okay? Have terrorists taken over your city? Are you all right? And I had to explain to my uncle, like, yeah, I actually went there voluntarily. Why would you go to this place, Ari? Oh, because I want to get the story, Uncle Rob. Yeah, I mean, crazy stuff. God bless my grandma's soul. God bless my uncle. He's still alive, and he was concerned about me. I hear what you're saying. Oh, you're from America. Do you know Steve? That's how it always is when you travel outside the U.S., right? They assume it's some small little country. No, America's a very, 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 very big place, my friends. Up next, speaking of how America is so awesome, Marco Rubio laid out why America is so exceptional. It's driving the left bonkers and making the right so proud to be American. We'll have that awesome audio for you when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show's final hour free for all. Your calls, your texts, your thoughts, your stories, streaming live at KVI and KVI.com. You want to be part of the most dangerous show and the most dangerous conversation? Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. A lot of you mad about this helicopter business. You're not mad like the crazies who are mad about the noise. You're mad people are making this a thing. This one from John. He says, we built a building on the west side of I-5 adjacent to Harborview Medical Center and had to jump through numerous hoops because of the helicopters. Right. God forbid we save anybody's lives. God forbid. Look, I understand. Landing a helicopter in a city is a huge deal. Anybody here remember when they used to land helicopters on top of the Pan Am building in New York? Okay. The Pan Am building, for those of you who saw the Avengers and all those movies, it's the one in front of the Tony Stark building that now says MetLife. They used to land helicopters up there. And it was so dangerous because of the updrafts from New York City, you couldn't do it, so they stopped doing it. That's one of the reasons why. Also because people aren't doing it. That's why you notice the helicopter landing pads in Manhattan are always when you're driving down the west side or Hudson or the FDR drives. You always see the helicopter landing pads. You got to be conscientious of these things. But for a hospital, guys, come on, really? Crazy stuff.
You were mentioning the helicopter crash over at the Como building, and I was working there at the time. I was not there when it happened. It happened right before I made it to work. So when I got into work, all the streets were shut down. I didn't know what was going on.
That's horrifying.
Yeah, it was terrible. But that changed in Seattle. So I think you can't build new helicopter pads on top of buildings anymore. And I think it actually changed the rules with helicopters landing in Seattle. As a matter of fact, I think when they built the Gates Foundation, they wanted a helicopter pad there, but they weren't allowed to build one because of the situation. So for a while, I think they would use the helicopter pad from time to time at the Como building.
See, here's the thing about the helicopter landing pads. I understand why hospitals need them. I really do. I don't know why the Gates Foundation would need one.
Yeah, I don't know either. But, back in the day with news organizations,
everybody had them.
I mean, our sister station, KNWN, when it was Como, we had an airplane that would go out for traffic.
That's crazy.
Radio stations had helicopters. TV stations had helicopters to go out and look for traffic. So, but now there's so many ways of getting aerial footage.
Cameras, satellite, drones, you name it.
All
there's
that
tons
stuff.
of ways to do it. Yeah.
So much cheaper. And the other thing with that pad that was over at Como Plaza, you could fuel helicopters up on when the helicopter could be fueled there. So we had a tank underground with helicopter fuel that once they shut all that down, they had to come and get that old fuel out of the tank.
Because otherwise you're sitting on a ticking time bomb down there with that. That's crazy. Yeah. See, I understand not landing helicopters in the middle of the city, but I think we can make exceptions for medical centers, right? I think we could do that. So this one here from Andrew. Ari, this children's hospital noise complaint issue and forced landing a mile away has been going on for more than 20 years, led by a woman who only lives to hate. This is not new. Yes, the reason it's new is because the pilot posted to X that, hey, we have to land a mile away because of this crazy noise complaint. So Pat says, Ari, there's many a whiner that moved to Covington or around GRCC that whine about the racetrack that's been there since the late 1950s. Only really loud 3 weekends a year. Yeah, exactly. Pam in Lake Stephen says, what's wrong with these people? I agree. Lynn says, constructive feedback. I like this, Lynn. Thank you. Lynn says, let's add more cost to families with sick children by requiring an ambulance ride in addition to a helicopter ride. Very selfish of those who complain. See, Lynn, you know what I think we should do? I think anybody who complains should have to pay that extra cost. I think that'll shut them up in a hurry, won't it now? Yes, exactly. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Stilgar and Kenmore. Stilgar, what's going on?
Well, this happens all the time, and it drives me nuts. There was, I think it was local, where somebody moved in next to a ball field in the wintertime, and then, well, oddly enough, there were kids playing there, and they were complaining to the city that the kids were making too much noise.
Yeah, this is what happened in.
You moved in
right
to a ball field.
This is the people who moved into one of the public schools, which was rented out by one of the Jewish schools, and these people were complaining the kids are making too much noise during recess. You live next to a school. It's been a school for like 75 years. You live next to a ball field. What'd you expect? I mean, now people move next to ball fields because they can see into the stadium from their apartments.
Well, I did like, on a helicopter-related note, I did like Paul Allen's solution to not being allowed to put a helipad on his Mercer Island home.
Right, he builds the
boat.
flat boat. So I'm going to tell you something. My house is directly across from where he used to live. And I saw that boat all the time. I would show all my guests, hey, that's his helicopter landing pad. So what did he die, like 5-6 years ago? I got to tell you, and all the time I lived in that house, 15 years at that point, I never saw a helicopter come even once. I think I only saw the boat move one time. I think that was it. Stilgar, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Jeff and Kent says, how about a Harrier jet? Yeah, land that on the hospital. Let's do that. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Warren in Stanwood. Warren, is that you? Yeah, Warren, go ahead.
It is.
There you go.
It is me. Hey, I wonder if that lady in Medina would be singing the blues about the noise if it was her husband or daughter or somebody who had a medical condition and they had the helicopter and medics in there to get her to life-saving facilities.
I think she'd probably be the one who's kind of like, why are you waking me up in the middle of the night? I got things to do tomorrow. Don't you know that? Don't you know that? I think she'd probably be one of those. Don't you think, Warren?
I think so, having grown up on the east side.
Yes, that's probably what it is. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. Then we got this one here. Somebody said, Ari, did you see the interview with Barack Obama and Mark Hamill? Because, okay, people are comparing Barack Obama's thing to the Death Star. First of all, get one of the bad guys if it's the Death Star. Second of all, it doesn't look like the Death Star. You know what it looks like? In Rogue One, the place where they go to steal the Death Star plans, that big tower complex, that's what it looks like. It doesn't look like the Death Star. It looks like a TIE fighter's going to be coming and going. Whoa, wait a minute. Who's got AI? Who can do this with the building and get us an AI video? No, you know what we need? We need the shuttle landing. And then the ramp comes down and the smoke comes out. And Barack Obama comes walking on out of that. And hang on. Mamdani comes out of that, and Obama's waiting for him as the emperor. No, the other way around. He's waiting for him, and then Mamdani. Okay, you get the gist. Somebody with AI can do this. Somebody with AI can do this for me, right? Somebody?
Stick to your Star Trek nonsense.
Hey, I like them Star Wars books. I don't like most of the movies anymore. I like the OG movies, not the rest of them.
Certainly play a lot of audio and a lot of music from some movies that you don't like.
No, I like them movies. I like that Star Wars stuff. I really do. Only good news to wrap up the show. Your good news headlines put a smile on your face heading into your evening commute. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Only good news to wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And I like this clip so much from earlier in the show when Marco Rubio got asked about America's history. I thought I'd play it for those of you who missed it at the beginning of the show because this is just the perfect answer.
I mean, my hope for America is what it's always been. I think it's the hope I hope we all share. We want it to continue to be the place where anyone from anywhere can achieve anything, where you're not limited by the circumstances of your birth, by the color of your skin, by your ethnicity, but frankly, it's a place where you are able to overcome challenges and achieve your full potential. I think that should be the goal of every country in the world, frankly, but I think in the U.S., we're not perfect. Our history is not one of perfection, but it's still better than anybody else's history, and ours is a story of perpetual improvement. Each generation has left the next generation of Americans freer, more prosperous, safer, and that is our goal as well. But it is a unique and exceptional country, and as we come upon this 250-year anniversary, I think we have a lot to learn and be proud of in our history. It is one of perpetual and continuous improvement, where each generation has done its part to bring us closer to fulfilling the vision that the founders of this country had upon its founding.
What a perfect answer. What an absolutely perfect answer. Man, I really want that guy to run for president. I really, really do in 2028. Let me know if you want him to run for president at 206-421-5757 on the text line. That's 206-421-5757. You guys are really obsessed with this helicopter story. I get why. Jeanette says, Ari, what about the folks who buy a home near SeaTac and then complain about the airplanes? Exactly. Exactly. This one here from Marino. The people who bought the condominiums next to Payne Field in Everett and then complain more airplanes when they went up for public flights. You bought a home next to an airport. What did you expect to happen? It was cheap for a reason. You know what? Let's give a little shout out to our first responders with this story here, who are flying them helicopters and such. Come On News says Seattle firefighters carried out a rope rescue Sunday after getting a report of a person trapped 40 feet down an embankment in Discovery Park. The Seattle Fire Department said crews responded to the call shortly before 4 p.m. and planned an aerial high-direction rope rescue to bring the patient up the embankment. Firefighters later made contact with the patient, who reported a minor injury and was seated on a shelf down the embankment, according to the department. Crews cut through thick brush to reach the patient, and firefighters from Rescue Company 1 were lowered down. Firefighters then lowered the patient down to the beach in a basket, where crews were staged. Medics evaluated the patient, who turned down transport to the hospital. You know what, the free helicopter ride? That sounds like a lot of fun. You get the basket, you get the everything. But yeah, they managed to get them out of that area. So that's big news. That's good news right there. Here's another good news first responder story for you. This one, according to the Post Millennial, a Florida police officer is receiving praise after he helped prevent a man from jumping off a bridge by spending nearly an hour talking him through the crisis. Not to make light of the situation, but I always think of Lethal Weapon. When you got Mel Gibson up there who jumps off the building with the guy. I don't know. My brain is weird. Body camera footage from an April 12th incident shows Officer Antonio Richardson speaking with a man standing at the edge of a bridge preparing to jump. Richardson was one of 7 patrol officers who responded to the scene and can be heard encouraging the man to reconsider his decision, saying, whatever you're going through, man, you can get through it. Now listen, man, listen, you can get through this. Believe in prayer. Touch my hand. I'm praying with you. For roughly 40 minutes, Richardson remained engaged in conversation with the man as he stood on the ledge above water. Richardson said, if you jump, you're going to hurt other people, and they're going to be hurting like you're hurting now. The cycle's got to stop. After the long conversation, the man ultimately stepped away from the ledge, walked towards Richardson, and the two hugged. Richardson later appeared on Fox News where he recounted the situation, saying, when I got the call, I was just there to stop the traffic, and a couple of other officers knew my position as a pastor, asked me to come up and talk with the guy. Nothing was scripted. I just did not want to see him jump. I felt within myself that God was going to spare his life, and he did. He said I was praying, and God spared his life, and we connected. And as a result of that connection, he didn't jump. What an absolutely beautiful story. A beautiful, beautiful story that could have had a much worse ending. A little preview for what's coming up on tomorrow's show, by the way. A Linwood City Council member is going viral as we speak right now after a video shows she was talking about how she didn't want to hang the American flag on city property or her house because the pride flag is better. Oy, that's going to be bad. Over here from the 360, Rubio would be great as president. Yes, I agree. Question is, do you want Rubio or do you want Vance? Give us a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. 5757. Well, that's going to about wrap it up for us today, my friends. But fear not, because we will be back tomorrow with more insane stories, more exciting guests, and, of course, more good news to put a smile on your face. That also, if you email me now, I'll send you a copy of that article I wrote for the New York Post. That's going to do it for us. We'll see you tomorrow. You've been listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.